Number one is that when you seek to be a leader in a democracy, you step forward to be noticed. And the promises you make are supposed to be informed promises, meaning you have analyzed all the situations. I was there in 2022. The agreement with the people of Kenya was that we are not continuing to dig the hole of debt, that we'll do whatever is necessary. Instead of digging the hole, we were going to pay off more debts and borrow less. Unfortunately, the reverse has happened. So that's one, that we needed not to continue doing the same thing and expecting different results. Second thing is priority. In a country when you are faced with a situation like now, when the fiscals are dim, you need to just be realistic about what you can achieve within the resources that are available. I don't think that has happened. The other thing is that we have seen there is not much increment in terms of revenues of the country. That is basically based on the fact that we have also introduced many other things, raiding the same taxpayer, but in a different manner. For example, take the housing levy. Housing levy does not go to the consolidated fund. So when we are reporting the government revenue, it does not appear as part of the revenue of government. But this is money being paid for by Kenyans. So it's still a revenue. You get what I mean? So we needed also to not make decisions in haste. Decisions about economy are usually made empirically. And in many jurisdictions, what they do, you first test a hypothesis before then running it over. We ought to have seen what would be the impact, for example, of introducing some of the things the people of Kenya are already paying for, so that we see also the effect of that to the mainstream collection of taxes. Let me give you a scenario as I finish. Let me give you a scenario why decision making is important for it not to be emotional, but fundamentally based on data. Kenya currently has the housing project, which all of us know. We know it more because of the drums being beaten for us to celebrate, and the photographs that are streaming in our timelines. So every Kenyan knows about it. Now, what is the effect? Kenyans are paying 75 billion Kenya shillings in terms of housing levy, cumulatively speaking. You pay the government 75 billion to do housing. And this is money you are cutting at the transformer level, in quotes. When you cut money at the payee level, ni kama kukatiwa stima kwa transformer, meaning you are not even given a decision to decide. Now, after that 75 billion Kenya shillings is cut, what is the effect? 2024 was a full year. You know, it's good to rely on a year that's already done. In the year 2024, while we see our timelines jamming with housing projects done by government, the housing subsector of our economy shrank by 2%. The consumption of cement in Kenya shrank by 7.9%. Can you just imagine that? That with all the information we are hearing about housing levy, consumption of cement actually went down. The consumption of steel in Kenya in the year 2024, calendar year, went down. I'm using government data, not mine. Now, this is the other intriguing part. I have seen government officials reporting that there are 300,000 youth working in the housing, in the housing program being done by government. If you just go today and Google the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, it shows that the number of Kenyans working in the construction sector is actually 234,000 Kenyans. And it's actually a downside from 2023. That number actually came down. So when you look at those kind of things, they should inform the government. What is it? And in my deduction there is that the 75 billion Kenya shillings that Kenyans are paying through the housing levy was more productive for the economy when it was in the private hands. Because that is the money Karaja would say to the uncle. The uncle would buy cement, start renovating their house. It is the money you'd say to your grandmother, they buy salt or sugar. Then they pay VAT through that. So that kind of multiplier and compounding, I think, is what the National Treasury and the government ought to give enough time so that the decision making can be informed. And if I were them currently, I would actually revert that money to where it is more productive. Government data itself has shown that 75 billion housing levy was more productive when it was in the pocket of Kenyans, in the exact same subsector of construction. If I were them, I would reverse that money to go to where it is more productive. That is in